Greetings, people. It's Paul here at Greenshire Homestead. It's going to be another garden video. You've heard me talk about creating garden beds. You've heard me talk about mulch. You've heard me talk about soil health, a lot of things like that. And I've done some talking about compost, but I've never really talked about fertilizer. And I like to keep my fertilizer as natural as everything else. I'm kind of a natural sort of fella. I don't take any kind of medication. I'm not a big fan of Monsanto. I don't like the chemical fertilizers. I don't like all the pesticides. I don't like GMO. I don't like hybrid. I want my plants to be heirloom. I got my homemade compost. We are on a well here, so the groundwater contamination is a very big deal to me, and I don't like all the runoff and everything coming out of the farm fields and that kind of thing. That's a whole nother topic, but I like to stay natural with my fertilizers, and we've been using animal feces, chicken manure, horse manure, cow manure, goat manure, sheep manure, all these different things that we've been using in modern times since we've become a mechanized nation. And we've gotten away from some of the things that our forefathers did. When I'm talking about gardening and a lot of the things I do around here, one of the common phrases I'll hear people say is, my grandparents used to do that, or my great-grandparents used to do that if it's a younger person. And they're right. I try to live my life the way people did 3 or 4 generations ago, or even farther back than that. I enjoy the modern conveniences of electricity and automobiles and that kind of thing, but where I can, I like to stay natural. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer here, okay? I'm going to talk about something, and some of you are going to go, oh no, and you're going to want to just shut the video off and move on. Please give me your time, hear me out on this, okay? If for no other reason, just for the entertainment value of hearing me talk about this. But I'm not going to talk about my bathroom habits, but I am going to talk about the amount of water that we waste flushing toilets, okay? A lot of times, most people in America and in other countries probably, they pee, they flush the toilet. So every time you pee, there's a gallon and a half, at least a gallon and a half going down the pipes. I have an issue with that. I think that if you are going to pee in the toilet, at your house, I mean, at a restaurant or a store or something like that, you probably pee in the urinal and they just walk away. First of all, I don't want to touch it. And second of all, I'm not going to waste the water. But in my house, when my wife goes to the bathroom, when she pees, we don't flush the toilet every time. We'll wait 7 or 8 times, and then we flush the toilet. That means the average person that flushes the toilet every time they pee is using 7 or 8 times the amount of water that we are just in one day. When you multiply that over the number of people in this country, you're talking millions of gallons of water. It gets mind-boggling how much water goes down the pipes just because of one person takes a pee. Now, here we go. Bear with me, okay? This jug right here, this is my urine. My wife doesn't do this. I do it, okay? She pees in the toilet like the rest, like a woman should. But if I'm in the house, this is in the basement. Okay, if I'm outside, I usually just pee outside, but if I'm in the house, this is in the basement, and I pee in this jug. If I'm anywhere around the shop where it's a close run to the shop, I've got a quart jar of mason jar in there, and I pee in that jar, and I screw the lid on. This jug it's windshield washer fluid jug. I like those jugs because the plastic is thick, and the cap screws on tight. This is an airtight cap. That's important, because the urine, before you use it as fertilizer, I'm going to explain to you how to do that. You don't just use plain urine. It has to be aged, and it doesn't have to be, but it's recommended that it be aged. Okay, and it's recommended that it be aged for a year to a year and a half, so 12 to 18 months. And the reason it has to have an airtight top on it is because during that aging process, nitrogen. Urine contains the big 3 building blocks of fertilizer. I'm going to put this down here in a second so you don't have to look at it. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen will dissipate out of this jug in a short period of time. The nitrogen will just dissipate out, so you're going to lose the nitrogen. You're still going to have the potassium and the phosphorus, but you're going to lose the nitrogen. So that's why it has to have an airtight lid. Okay, so once that jug is full, then I write the date on it. Not the date, but the month and the year. So that jug will be full. This is the end of May. That jug will be full in June. So I'll write on there June of 23, and then I know not to use that jug till at least June of 24. So I have other jugs from years gone by that I'm using, and what you're going to do then is you're going to pour some of the urine into a jug of water. Now the watering cans I use are 2-gallon cans. There's 4 quarts to a gallon, so there's 8 quarts that go into a 2-gallon watering can. The ratio that the scientists say, the universities and science labs and everybody that's done research on this, because for thousands of years people have been using their urine for fertilization. We just don't know that, but that's a fact. Your great-grandparents and your grandparents used their urine to fertilize their garden. You may not know that, but that's a fact. That's what people did, because they know the benefits of it, and they weren't wasteful. They weren't going to put all that water down into the sewer because they took a leak. And while I'm on that subject, real quick, I want to make sure you understand this. Do not get the urine out of your septic tank, your lagoon, or any type of sewage facility at all whatsoever. This is not a feces kind of a situation. Okay, just because we use chicken, horse, cow, and sheep manure doesn't mean we can use human manure. Do not use your feces for manure under any circumstances. That has to be highly, highly processed by people that know what they're doing. This urine is strictly coming out of my body directly into this jug. At no time has it ever been anywhere near any kind of sewage or feces. Okay, that needs to be clear. Now, when you're going to mix the urine, the aged urine with the water, the scientists in the labs, they say anything from 1 to 3 ratio, which would mean 3 quarts of water to 1 quart of urine, up to a 1 to 15 ratio, which would be 1 quart of urine to 15 quarts of water. Now that's a wide spread. Anybody can tell you that 3 to 1 and 15 to 1, that's an awful big spread, and it is. So I like to come in on the middle. They've done the research. They say 1 to 3 is safe. I think 1 to 3 sounds a little bit extreme. So I go, like I said, you got 8 quarts in 2 gallons, 8 quarts of water in 2 gallons. So I'll put 7 quarts of water in a 2-gallon watering can, and then I put in 3/4 of a quart of water into that same jug. So I'm putting in, I've got a 7 to 3/4 ratio, which is going to land between 7 to 1 and 8 to 1. So I'm right in the middle of the scale of what's deemed acceptable, and I think that's a good ratio. That's a good ratio to shoot for. I'm not using an excessive amount of urine, but I'm using enough that I think my plants are getting a benefit from it. Now, the scientists also say that you can put this on all of your plants. It doesn't make any difference if it hits, like I'll use lettuce as an example. If you're going to, fertilize your lettuce with it, you just pour it on your lettuce. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to the people that want to come to my house and eat supper with me. Under no circumstances am I going to let my urine come in contact with any food that somebody's going to put in their mouth. No way is that going to happen. So that would include, I mentioned lettuce, that would include kale, that would include beets and carrots, because the carrots and the beets grow in the ground, so if you pour it there, it's coming in contact with the beet and the carrot. So those types of things, the scientists all say it's okay, that because it's aged manure, it's aged urine, there's the bacteria issue isn't going to be there, but it's still my pee, and I don't want it going in the mouths of my people, my friends or family, or even if a stranger ate at my house, I wouldn't want to subject him to that. So that's a personal choice, though. And so what am I using it for? Well, you got your tomatoes, you got your zucchini, you got your squash, your butternut squash, cantaloupe, watermelon, all the different things where you have a root ball and then the fruit is somewhere else. I do put it on my cabbage because the cabbage, the ball that you harvest is not near the soil. You know, it's just a few inches away, but you got those big giant leaves, and I lift up the big giant leaves and I pour the contents right there at the base of the plant, so it goes down underneath the plant. The cabbage ball itself never comes anywhere near the urine. And then we're going to ferment the cabbage. We don't chop up the cabbage and eat it. We ferment all of our cabbage into sauerkraut. 100% of our cabbage goes into sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. I even put it on pizza. But peppers, that'd be another thing. Anything where the fruit is not in contact with the foliage, or we're not eating the foliage. I don't want the fruit anywhere near the urine, and I feel comfortable with that. So, you know, some of you may go ahead and pour it on your lettuce, but you know, that's up to you. They say it's okay. The other thing is, if you're a person that has some kind of a health problem where you're taking medication. Say you're an older person and you're on some type of heart med, under no circumstances then should you be doing this. If you have a urinary tract infection, you should not be doing this. This is only something that a healthy person should be putting their urine on the garden. And so how often do you do this? Well, we've got our 2-gallon watering can, and we've mixed our ratio 7 or 8 to 1. And during the time period that the plants are actively growing is when you want to be applying this fertilizer. Once the plant has reached its mature state, that's the maximum size that it's going to get. Like my Amish paste tomatoes are going to get about 8 feet tall, and my trophy tomatoes are going to get about 3.5 feet tall. So once they've reached that maximum growth, then I'm going to stop using the urine fertilizer on them, because what I'm trying to do is help those plants during their growth stage. Once they've reached their growth stage, I don't need to do it anymore, because I've already put my compost in the hole where I put the plant. You know, when I plant the plant and I dig the hole, I put a lot of compost in there and I incorporate that around the hole, and then I put my plant in. So the plant's being fed, plus my garden soil is wonderful stuff. You know, I've talked time and time about that, and then it's full of worms. So I got those worms in there laying their worm castings, and worm castings are some of the best fertilizer on the planet. So my garden beds are healthy. It's the only time I'm applying the urine is during that active growth stage, when the plants are, like, say, a couple of weeks old to when they reach their full maturity. So it's a month and a half, you know, depending on the type of plant. And so once they've reached their full growth, then I stop applying it. While I'm applying it, during that time period that I'm applying the fertilizer, I'm going to, depending on the health of the plant, you know, if you look at a plant and it's looking a little light green instead of a nice dark green, I'm going to apply the fertilizer about once a week. If the plant looks good and it looks healthy and it's virile and it's dark green like it should be, I'm going to apply that fertilizer probably every 2 weeks. So again, it's going to depend on your given circumstance how often you're going to apply that fertilizer, and the plant's going to tell you. If the plant looks good, every 2 weeks. If the plant looks like it needs a little help, every week. So, like I said, we've been using all the animal excrement for generations and generations before. You know, we're just used to the animal excrement going on there because that's the way we've always done it. So people don't get all squeamish about that. But you know, you mention the urine and people get squeamish, and I get it. You know, it's not something we're used to. But generations, if you just going back a couple of generations, people would have been used to that, and they wouldn't have thought anything about this conversation at all whatsoever. So it's about being a good steward of the land. You know, we don't want to waste water. Just because we peed, we don't want to have 1.5 gallons of water going down the pipes, and then it's using a natural resource that has all the proper ingredients in it for healthy plant growth. NPK, I mean, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. I know it seems weird, people, but it makes sense. You know, so give it a thought. You know, maybe you'll try it. If nothing else, you're going to be saving a lot of water from going down the pipes and into a sewer where perfectly good drinking water is being wasted, sending all kinds of urine down into our sewage systems, and then that water's got to be processed, and the sewage has got to be processed, and it's a whole big thing. Little tiny steps will make a big difference if enough people get involved in it. So just something to think about. 7 to 1, 8 to 1 ratio, aged for 1.5 years, to a year, year and a half, and just urine. No other product in there. If you're on medication, don't do this. If you have a urinary tract infection, don't do this. Just for healthy people. Okay? Once you get healthy, you can start doing it. So, thanks for watching. You have a great day. We'll see you next time at Green Shower.